Hello coders, welcome to Code School. Welcome. I hope you're all feeling good and nice and healthy. We are going to be working through some HTML today. First of all, I should talk about what Code School is. What on earth am I doing? And why am I not streaming in the mornings as I usually do? So, Code School is an idea that I had because of the current climate. There's a lot of people who unfortunately cannot leave the house for self-isolation, self-distancing. This means that they cannot go to code clubs, evening classes, meetups, and just socialize with other coders. So I thought what I would do is create this Code School every Thursday, Code School Thursdays, and we'll tackle a section of web development, a part of writing code, building websites, that kind of thing, in an hour-long block. So this is going to be 9 till 10 GMT. We may roll over, of course. It really depends on where the stream goes. But this is going to be beginner-friendly, although anybody is invited. So at any kind of skill level, please do join. And if you've got any questions, any comments throughout this Code School, then do put down the comments, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. It doesn't have to be about code, of course. It could be about anything else. But today we're going to focus on HTML because HTML is one of the most underrated computing languages out there, I think. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to explain what HTML is. We're going to write some HTML, of course, and then we're going to discuss semantics, the document object model as well, and other bits and pieces too. So, I'm just going to grab a cup of tea. Bear with me a second. Okay, let's go into the code. So, I've created a Github repository, and this repository will hold all of the code that we're using throughout the code schools. So, the first thing I can do is show you where that is, so you can follow along. And by the way, this is going to go out to YouTube in a couple of days, to the YouTube channel, the live YouTube channel. I'll put links to all of these things in the show notes. There is also a Discord server as well that I am talking about this Code School on. I'll just put that into the chat too, Discord. There you go. The bot doesn't seem to be... There we go, the bot's picked that up. howtocodewell.net/Discord. It's a great, friendly group of people who are coders, web developers learning to code. So come and join the community there. It's totally free. And of course, this is free because it's live. So, live stream, live code, anything can happen. Okay, so what we're going to do today is focus, as I said, on HTML. So let's go back into the code here. And we're going to, first of all, talk for a minute about how HTML, and then I'll create HTML. I just thought what I should mention is what this thing is above here. So this is the folding at home number. If you are folding at home, if you've got folding at home installed on your computer, then please do join our team because we're helping awesome scientists solve awesome problems. And there's many of those at the moment. So, okay, HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. Hello, Tyranid. Thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate it. HTML. So HTML is the structure of a web page. However, HTML can also be used in mobile apps as well. So originally it was for web pages, but of course you can make mobile apps out of websites these days. So there's a bit of a gray area there, but primarily it's about marking up the page, the website, if you will. So it's a markup language which describes the markup of the page, and it just describes the meaning of the page, not the presentation of the page. That's something else. So we'll dive into what I mean by that as we go on throughout the evening. So I think what I'll do is I'll create a HTML document first. So we're just going to go in and create a new directory here. Now, by the way, this tool that I'm using here. It is PHP Storm, but really you can use whatever you want. You could even use Notepad. So don't worry about not having the right tools. Most Windows machines, I think, come with Notepad, so you can use Notepad if you want to. We're going to create a folder in here just called HTML, and I'm going to create a new file in here called index.html. Now, you've got to make sure that the extension is .html, or it could be .htm if you want, but HTML, hypertext markup language. And index is because when you have an index file in the directory, that is the first file that gets rendered, that gets displayed to the page by default. So index.html, and we'll press enter here. Yes, I will add it to the repository. Okay, so now we have a complete blank page, a nice blank canvas, if you will, that we can write our HTML on. So I have a couple of resources that I'm going to be dipping in and out of this evening. And the first one is the HTML standard. So it's, if I copy this and put it into the chat here. So this is the living standard of HTML. This is a very good document all about HTML. Goes through all of the bits and pieces. As you can see, it's huge. There's lots to it. People think that HTML is basic. It's the basic part of web development, but actually HTML is very, very complicated. If you really get into the nitty-gritty bits and pieces, it is what I would class as one of the three pillars of web development. You've got HTML, you've got JavaScript, and you've got CSS. Now, don't worry too much about what JavaScript is and what CSS is today. We'll be tackling those later, hopefully in another code school. But as you can see, there's lots and lots and lots to this. Lots of different attributes, lots of different tags, and I'll be talking about what they are in just a second. Lots of different things that you can do with HTML without even delving into CSS and JavaScript. So there's quite a few bits and pieces, as you can see, all the way down to there. So HTML is I think, a very underrated language, and yet it's an extremely important language. So what I'm going to start with in the code, if I go into the code, is we're going to start with just writing a simple web page. And you may have on your web page things like a header, a footer. You could have a sidebar, some navigation, some content, and really, when you think of it like that, you're deciding about the presentation of how this looks rather than how it's semantically marked up. So the difference there is that we need to mark up the page and define the structure, and then we can paint that using various other tools for things like alignment and so forth. Hey, Sniper Side, thank you for joining. Thank you. Hey ho. Hey, buddy. Now, the first thing that you must do in HTML is you must define the doc type. So we do this like so, doc type. Now, the doc, I'll just type it and then I'll explain. HTML like this. Now, you might think this doesn't really mean anything. And really, this tag, because that's what it is. This tag is used for legacy versions of HTML. At the moment, we're on version 5. It is a living document, so it's not like an incremental sort of HTML 4, 3, and 2 as they were. There's new things being added to HTML5. So and that will be on that link that I've supplied all the changes. So this is defining the doc type, and the doc type, the type of the document, is HTML. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Now, some things about this. So this is a tag, and the tag has these greater than, less than symbols either side. Now this is, we don't have to close this. However, this is the only tag that we don't have to close. All the other tags we do. So for example, the next tag that we need to write is HTML. So this is the root level document. And can you see that my PHP Storm, my IDE here, has created a closing tag for this. So that's the start tag. This is the closing tag. Now, within here, what we can do is we can start actually writing the structure of the page, of the document. So that's the root level. And what we can do is we can do a head. And in there, we can put in some meta information about the document. Outside of the head, we can have a body. And anything in the body will be displayed on the page. Now notice as I'm doing this, I'm sort of nesting this out with tabs here. Excuse me. So in the head, we could have the title. And here I'm just going to do my first web page. It doesn't have to be all in caps. And I should say, as I said, talking about capital letters, this doesn't need to be in caps either. So I could, if I wanted to, put in doc type like so. And also, to be honest, these can also be in uppercase as well. Whatever you decide you want to do, make sure that you're consistent. So I've got projects where some is in uppercase and some is in lowercase. However, I wouldn't mix and match. It does work if you do a mix and match, but just don't, because you won't. It won't be. It's not making your life any easier if you're having to read head as capital and body as lowercase. Also, my personal preference is to lowercase everything because I don't like things shouting at me. So, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this. I just want to make sure that I am covering all bases. So I'm just going to grab that and then go into here. So the doc types are required for legacy reasons. So this is off of the document that I put in the link here. When omitted, browsers tend to use different rendering modes that is incompatible with some specifications. Okay, so for legacy reasons. So before we had HTML5, we had 4 and 3 and so forth, and we would define different versions of the document through the doc type. We don't have to worry about that so much at the moment. However, when omitted, browsers tend to use different rendering modes that are incompatible with some specifications. Because at the end of the day, you are dealing with a specification that you need to adhere to. Excuse me. So this is the shorthand doc type. So hashbang or shebang, and then doc type HTML. But you could do a long form if you want, like this. Okay. So let's go back to the Codemo. So we've got the head tag, we have a title tag, and now we have the body tag. Okay, let's just see lang. Okay, yes. So these are elements that you're putting on the document. These things here, these tags, these are elements, and they are marking up, they're structuring the page. What I haven't done is actually showed you the web page yet, but there is one other thing that I need to mention before I do that, and that is attributes. So these are elements. The attributes are the values, the parameters, if you will, that go inside the elements. So they go inside the tag, not inside the body of the tag, but inside the actual tag itself. So one here is, if you can see my PHP Storm here has that highlighted, that HTML bit highlighted. If you can see the changing colors, if I hover over that, it should warn me that I'm missing a required lang attribute. So if I insert that, so I'm going to use my IDE to do that. If I hit insert, so we have lang is equal to, and notice that we have our two double quotes here. Now this is the language code that the document is in. So for example, this would be EN for me, so EN like so. And I think my IDE is clever enough to work out, all of these are various different language codes. So for instance, ES, wherever I've just seen that, ES is Spanish, DE is German, and of course EN, EN is English. Okay, so this is an element, and this is the element's attribute. Now, you can have more than one attribute. You can have as many attributes as you want. And something I should mention is that you can actually do this. So, for instance, if there was many attributes on the element, you could do lang, and then you could do a space like this, and really sort of put all sorts of attributes down. This is still going to work. But for this example, we won't do that, just to make it more readable. So, for example, when we get into things like inputs and forms, where you have various different attributes, such as your IDs, such as your names of the inputs and the type of the inputs and all of that stuff, when you start getting sort of 5 or 6 different types of attributes, then it's all going to be, it can get a little bit unreadable. Hello, Windy Mindy. That is such an awesome name. Thank you very much for following, and you've also set off the emotes. Awesome. Thank you very much for following. I do appreciate that. If you've got any questions as I go through this, then please do let me know. Put your thoughts down and everything in the comments section, and I'm more than happy to change direction of the code score and answer your questions if you want. Okay, so that is the HTML element. That is the attribute, as I've mentioned. And what we've done here is we've essentially created our first ever web page with a title. So if I was to open this, and we can see that my clever little PHP Storm IDE here has these little buttons here. If I was to click on one of these, let's use Chrome for instance, we can see that this is our web page. Now it's completely blank because we haven't actually put anything on the page at all. However, if you've got eagle eyes, you can see that it is a bit small, but it does say in the title, My First Web Page. So that is our title that we've created, and that goes into the tab. Excuse me. So you can imagine, if you wanted to, you could do some really clever stuff with this, especially if you're using things like JavaScript. But we won't talk about JavaScript today, just because that's another can of worms to get through. Okay, so this is our blank canvas, what we can work through. Excuse me. So let's go back into the code and start filling out that canvas. Now you can do whatever you want in the body. There's no structure that you need to adhere to, straight after the body is open. So when I say the body is open, I mean this here. This is the open part of the body, in between the opening and closing tags. And by the way, the difference between an opening tag and a closing tag is this thing here. So you can close that. Now, I did mention before that there are self-closing tags as well. Should I show you that? Maybe later. But first of all, let's start actually writing some stuff and actually getting it into the web page. So the first thing we're going to do is create some content. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a heading first of all. So I'm going to create a H1, and in here I'm going to say my first heading, okay? Then after this I'm going to put in another line, and then I'm going to do a H2, my second heading, and then after this I'm going to have a H3, and this is my third heading. Okay, let's press save. Now, they're different types of headings. They're all headings, but they have H1, H2, H3, and you can go on and on and on to H4, H5, and so forth. What do you think is going to happen here when I run this? You're going to see my first heading, my second heading, my third heading, one after the other in the web page. So if we press save here and then we refresh, so we have my first heading. Let's bring this out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. So you have my first heading, my second heading, and my third heading. Okay, now the first observation, I think, is that there is obviously a difference in the headings that we're using. So the H1 is bigger and bolder than the H2. The H2 is bigger and bolder than the H3. What you're doing is you're defining a structure. If you think of it like a book, and I'll probably use this analogy a lot. So with a book, you have the structure of a book. So you're not the presentation of the book, but the structure of the book. The book has, for example, an index page. It has probably a foreword. It has page numbers. It has probably chapters and chapter titles. And then it has the actual content itself. So before you even get into reading the book, you know how a book is structured. So for example, if I said to you, pick up that book and have a look at the index page, you'll know exactly what that means. So what we're doing here is we are structuring the document, the web page here in a way that makes sense, which is semantic. It gives it meaning without interfering and defining the presentation. The presentation, the display, how it looks in terms of the stylizing, that is all done with CSS, which is cascading style sheets. What we are doing is we are creating a document that has meaning in a structured and semantic manner. So we have the headings, and we can obviously do a lot more. So we're going to go back into the code here. Let's actually build something that is useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a list of things. So let's say in the H1, what I want to do is actually create a table of contents. So we're going to do a UL. And a UL is a unordered list. Sorry, my throat's getting really scratchy. So a UL is an unordered list. And within that UL, you can specify the list items. So li, for instance, here. So let's say, for example, I want to create a list item. Let's say, for instance, it's a shopping list. So let's say this here says shopping list. And these are the items on that shopping list. So let's say, for example, I wanted to purchase some beans, and I also wanted to purchase some one of my favorite things, tea bags, because I'm English and I like tea. And then the next one, we're going to get some fruit. And now we have a decision, because we want to get some fruit, but we haven't decided what fruit we want to put on this shopping list. I guess what I should do before I define what the fruit is I should press save and then go into the browser and refresh. Okay, so these are the list items that we're creating here: beans, tea bags, and fruit. And notice that we already have a predefined style based on the fact that it is an unordered list. Okay, so these are the list items that we've created. And if I go back to here, the next thing we're going to do is create a nested list. Okay, so this is defining the different types of fruit that we want to purchase. So what I can do with that is I could do within the LIs here, within the body of the LI, I could do this, UL, and can you see that we have with the closing UL here. Let's close that down. Let's bring that out. Okay, now we have another list, a list within a list. And this list is going to contain, the types of fruit that we want to purchase. So let's say we want to get some apples. Let's also say that we would like to get some oranges as well. And what else shall we get? Some pears. Okay. So what I just did there on PHP Storm is I pressed a special shortcut key which allowed me to reformat the code. Here we go. So I can rearrange the code and do a bit of code cleanup. Essentially what this does is it puts the code back into a well-formed structure. So it knows that should be at this level, and it knows that these LIs should be at that level, and so on. Okay, so this makes the code a little bit more readable. So we start with the shopping list, and then we have a UL. This is our unordered list, and this list contains beans, tea bags, and then it contains fruit. Now, we define the different types of fruit within a sub-list, which is UL within the LI. So can you see we've actually gone 1, 2, 3 levels, 4 levels deep. So we have apples, oranges, and pears. So if I was to save this now and go into the browser, here we go, you can see that it knows that this list is within this list, list item, sorry. So this list item contains a unordered list, such as this. And you can go, nested quite far out. And this is actually how a lot of navigation, drop-down navigation works, where you're actually defining the top tree of the navigation, and then these would be sub-menu items. Okay, so that is unordered lists. But let's say, for example, we wanted to have ordered lists. So an ordered list starts with OL, so ordered list, and that's unordered list. So what should we have with our ordered list? So I'm going to do leaderboard. And I'm going to put in some names. So let's say, for example, we have Tim, Jane, I'm just making these up. Oops. Frank. And let's say Sue. Li. Okay, so the difference between this list here and this list here, apart from the fact that this one has a nested list within it, is that this is an unordered list and this is an ordered list. So let's hit save and let's refresh the page here. So we now have an ordered list and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you're dealing with lists that require some form of ordering in terms of numeric ordering, then use a OL, not a UL. A UL is the unordered list, so it doesn't matter if I'm in a shop and I buy tea bags before I buy beans, right? If I put in my basket fruit before I put in tea bags, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. Because there's no need for an order. However, with a leaderboard, you do have the context of there needs to be one element above another element, and that actually has meaning. So what we're doing here is we're describing a meaning between these two items. So, for example, Tim is higher up than Jane, and she is higher up than Frank, and Frank is higher up than Sue. So, and of course, what you can do with ordered lists is you can actually create sublists too. So if I did a OL here, there we go, I could create another list. So let's say, for example, we did an LI, and this one we had Peter, and we also had another one in here, and we called this one Mary. Another one called Jack. Or Jack, yeah, can't spell. There we go. So let's refresh. So there we go. We have a ordered list within an ordered list. So if you wanted to create a subgroup within a particular group, then you could do that too. Okay, so we've created our headings. This is a heading 1, this is a heading 2, and we've created our lists like so. So the next thing I'm going to tackle is paragraphs. So this is actually creating content for let's say, for instance, you wanted to write a blog post, for instance. So let's just get rid of heading 3 for a minute. Let's put in P tag here. So P is a paragraph tag. Again, we're giving it meaning. We're giving the content meaning. We're not stylizing the content. We're not giving any style sheets. We are just saying this is a paragraph. And this paragraph, because it's in a paragraph, it should be rendered differently. It should be marked up differently to a heading, to a list, for instance. So I'm just going to say this is the first code school from how to code well. Okay. So we're going to hit save and we're going to go into the browser again. I'm going to refresh the page. We got rid of that heading, but this is the paragraph here. Okay, so this is the first code school from how to code well. And what I'm going to do is put in a heading, which is heading 1. And here we're going to have lesson 1. And we're going to have, this is, we're going to have HTML basics. Okay, I'm going to put this above here. And I'm going to change that to be a H2. Whoops. Like that. And I'm also going to change that to, no, we're going to keep that as H2, that's fine. Let's hit save. let's refresh the page. Let's scroll up here. So we have lesson 1 HTML basics. That's header 1. Can you see what I'm trying to do here? Where we are building our website. And then here, this is the first code school from How to Code Well. Thank you very much, Front End Nexus, for following. Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And of course, you sparked off the emotes as well. Brilliant. I'm so glad that's working. Howdy. Where are you from, Front End Nexus? Are you from the US? Howdy. Good old tea. Do like my tea. Romania. Sweet. Hello, Romanian. Hello. I hope you're well. Right. So what we're doing is we are working through HTML. I'm teaching the still alive and kicking. That's the main thing, mate. That's the main thing. Yeah, that's fair play. Good on you. So we're going through HTML. I'm teaching the basics of HTML. This is the first lesson. We've just done lists, unordered and ordered lists and sublists, and I've mentioned a little bit about the semantics. And there is an acronym that I will be throwing in from time to time, and that's DOM, D-O-M, Document Object Model. We'll be discussing that, hopefully, if we have a bit of time. I'm keeping my eye on the time here. What I would like to do, though, is create a link, and this is a web link. So when you click on a link on a web page, this is how that works. And I mentioned earlier that with HTML elements, you can also have HTML attributes within the element. That is what we're going to be playing with. And what I'm going to do is put a link into the howtocodewell.net website, just there. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the code once more. And where we've got this here, we need to create that piece of text as a link. So to do that, what we need to do, this is quite counterintuitive because everything here makes, when you read it, it makes sense. You know that H1, well, that's something to do with a heading because it's H, and because it's 1, there's a number 1, which means that must be greater than a H2. UL, you can kind of work that out too because it's an unordered list. LI, list item. A link, a link is A. It's A. So it's an A tag like so. Okay. I need to work out what A actually stands for. Better people than me will know. So it's an A link, an A tag. And within the A tag, we need to define some attributes to tell. It's an anchor. Of course it is. Yes, thank you for that, Sniper Side. It's an anchor to either an internal part of the page. So you could use anchor links to various things. For instance, heading, for instance, when you click on a link and it takes you down to the page, the portion of the page, or a link to somewhere else, i.e. to another web page. So we define all of those things using attributes, and you can see that my IDE here has given me a whole bunch of attributes that I could use. What I'm going to do is type in H and then ref, and we can do href or hreflang. Let's do href because hreflang is the language of the reference, the hypertext reference. So it's given me the option of going to index.html here. It knows that this file is index.html, so this would go back to itself. But actually what I want to do is I want to do https // and then how to code well, I'm going off the screen here, .net, like so. Okay, so if I save that now, what we've got is we need to refresh that. Can you see that that's now gone underline? And can you see that my cursor has changed when I hover over it to be a pointer, a cursor, a hand, and it's clickable. It's clickable. Also, in the bottom left-hand side, I guess sort of down here, this sort of area here, you can see that when I hover over it, there is sort of a link that's displayed. Not all browsers will do this. Okay, not all browsers will do this. And in the early days of IE6 and before, you were able to control that as well using JavaScript and other bits and pieces. I'm so glad IE6 is no longer here. So we're talking now about browsers and browser compatibility. Luckily, browsers have grown in and standardized. They're not quite fully standardized. One thing will not always work in other browsers. There is still a lot of browser testing that you need to do in order to make sure that things work. For example, I was working the other day on a date picker. It worked perfectly fine in Chrome, but it fell apart in Safari. So yeah, just to warn you that I'm using Chrome here, but you'll need to have a look and check other browsers too. Sniperside is saying, because it's an anchor to point to the page, comes from old HTML 4 days and less. Now it's a hyperlink, but the tag name is still a. Yes. So there's a lot of legacy stuff in HTML because of the way HTML has grown, and that's also off the back of how people have used it. HTML5, the live incremental change, the live changes are coming in, and a lot of them have been dictated by mobile applications to make the interface more usable for smaller screens. So anyway, let's click this link, shall we? So I'm just going to click this, and it should take me to the howtocodewell.net website. And if I use back on the back browser here, we'll go straight back to this page. Now, that was a link that went directly to another page, and can you see when we click this, we totally lost where we were before. What we can do is we can play around with the behavior of how this link actually works. So if we go back to here again to the A tag, what we can do is we can give it a target, another attribute, and can you see that we have different targets that we can specify: blank, parent, self, and top. Again, a lot of this is from legacy stuff, but if we did blank, underscore blank, this is going to change how you get directed to that web page. If I hit save here and then went back into here, we need to refresh the page, of course, because we need to refresh the document that we've changed. If I was to click on there and then clicked on the link, what we're doing is we're actually creating a new tab. Can you see that is the old one, that is the new one. Okay, so we've changed the behavior of how this link works using that target attribute. Excellent. Now we can also use some other attributes as well. So for instance, I could put in a title, and in here we could say, whoops, not that. We could do check out more coding courses. And if I hit save and then refresh this page, we should see when I hover over it a very small little tooltip that comes up which says check out more coding courses. So you're changing how this link works through those attributes. And as I said earlier, you can have lots and lots of different attributes that changed the behavior of the element here. And when you get to, as you can see, if you get over to 5 or 6, or for instance, the link is the element is actually going to get quite long. So what you could do, for instance, and I've done this before, is you just create this. put in a new line after every one, and this will work. So if I hit refresh, there we go. So nothing's changed, and we still have that tooltip that's come out. And if I clicked on here, we can still go over to that web page. So if you've got lots and lots of different attributes, and when you do get onto frameworks and so forth, you'll have quite a few attributes perhaps. I mean, we haven't even talked about styling or CSS here, classes, or IDs or names or what have you. And we will eventually get on to creating forms. There's going to be a lot of attributes, so we may do this then. What I'm going to do though is just Control Z all this back, because I think that this is okay for now, even though my ID is saying that's the line there, but never mind. Okay. So I think if we went back to the page here, we have shopping list and we've got leaderboard. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue down the road of links, I think, because as Sniperside mentioned, they're anchor links, and that's given me an idea of demonstrating how you can actually anchor to an internal part of the page. So what I'm going to do is go back to here, and we're going to create a table of contents. So let's do a H2, and we're going to do table of contents, like so, contents, get it right. And we're going to do an LI. So I like a UL. So I like doing this in my README files, having a table of contents that links to various parts of the README. Anyway, so then we do an LI within the UL, and we're going to have shopping list, and we're going to have another LI here, and this is going to be leaderboard. Like so. Oops, can't spell board. And these are going to be links. So we're going to do a href, F, there we go. And close that A tag, like so. And this one here is going to have another href, so a href. There we go. And if we go back to here, we press refresh, we can see that we have our shopping list and we have our leaderboard. Now, because they don't have any values within those within the attribute of the href attribute, if I click this, it's just going to go to the current page. In fact, the hash symbol denotes that it's going back to itself. Okay. I'm just going to grab a drink, sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to link to a portion of the page, so the shopping list and leaderboard. Excuse me. And what I would like to do is use the names for that. So that's another attribute. So what I'm going to do is link to the name, and the name is based on the ID, I believe. I'm just triple checking that. Yes, it does look. Yep. No, I don't. So many websites these days have these pop-ups. It's quite frustrating. And we could also do the mail to as well. Yeah. Put that down on my list. Okay. So we're going to give these names and we're going to target those from here, I believe. I'm also going to do a quick mail to as well. So let's do an li. Let's do another a tag, href, and this is send email. And we'll get onto that bit in just a second. So refresh, let's see, make sure that they are in. Yes, send email. Okay, excellent. So that's what I'm going to play with next. I will probably deal with the hreflang probably in another thing. Wow. Okay. So we need to do two. We need two different attributes here. The first one is an ID. So we do h2 the anchor point. So ID is equal to, and we'll give this an ID of shopping list, and we're going to give an ID. Now, the reason why I was a bit hesitant is because I wasn't sure whether to use IDs in this first stream, because I need to talk about IDs a little bit. I'm conscious of time. Leaderboard. So IDs. Okay, IDs are unique identifiers, which means that you cannot, well, you shouldn't have the same ID in different elements. So, for instance, if this was ID of beans, for instance, and this was also an ID of beans, I'm hoping, yeah, we'll have an error here. Beans, duplicate IDs. This is because IDs are used a lot to identify certain elements using things like JavaScript. Again, we won't go into JavaScript tonight. That's a completely different kettle of fish to go down. JavaScript, by the way, deals with the behavior of the elements on the page. But we will look at JavaScript at some point. We look at JavaScript anyway on the other streams, the morning streams. So if you want to look at some more advanced stuff, then I recommend checking out those streams too. Thank you very much, Tyranid, for joining. I do appreciate it. Stay safe and happy coding. Thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate it. Okay, so we have the IDs in here. So we got the shopping list and we have the leaderboard. Now, what we need to do is we need to link to those using their IDs. Now we do this using, as I mentioned before, a hash symbol, and hash defines the the current document, and we can pass in the IDs. So, for instance, shopping list, and this one here would be the ID of leaderboard. So when you click on these links here, what happens is that when you click on the links, it's going to go, okay, we're going to the current document, the self document, but we're looking for the element with the ID of shopping list. So let's hit save like so. Let's go back into the code. Let's refresh our page. Okay, so I click on shopping list. Can you see it's gone straight to the shopping list? And if I scrolled up here and if I went to leaderboard, it's gone straight down to leaderboard. Now, obviously, with a very long document, it's wise to have a back to top or something link that you can click through. Now, the send email link is a mail to. So that's slightly different because this is telling the link to actually create an email. So excuse me. So the mail to. The mail to. Now, I'm not actually going to show you this fully work because I don't want my my email client to come up, essentially. But what you do in here in the href is you type mail to, like so, and then colon, and then someone's email address. So we're just going to do foo@bar.com, like so, and that is the link that once clicked, your email client will load up because it knows that is an email link, a mail to. But you can also do other things as well. So, for example, you can do question mark. Now, this is a query string, and we'll talk about query strings when we get on to PHP. And HTTP requests. So you would have subject. And by the way, as I keep mentioning, if you watch the streams in the morning, we are dealing with PHP, Symfony, Docker, all sorts of interesting and lovely technologies. We are currently rebuilding the howtocodewell.net website using microservices. So if you're watching this going, Pete, you're playing with some really fundamental stuff here, which isn't the normal stuff that you do. This is catered for new programmers and developers who are coming into the industry. So it's a mixed bag. I do appreciate, but this one is dedicated to it's beginner friendly. It's a beginner friendly code school. So we can have a subject in here. So for example, we can do hello as the subject. We can also do some other things as well. So for instance, we can have CCs and BCC. Is it BCC that they call it? They can have BCCs, blind carbon copies. I think that's. It's funny how all of these things have come from legacy bits and pieces. So it's not really a carbon copy, but in the sense, well, it is a carbon copy. It's a duplicate, but whatever. Anyway, to have multiple attributes on here, different key value pairs. In this query string, you would have an ampersand, a symbol like that, and so, for example, you would do. I think it is body. Someone may know body, and then you would equal that to something like hi, blah blah, right? So that's how you would do that. That's how you would do a mail to link, like so. Obviously, this is deemed sometimes as quite insecure because you're actually displaying the email address and the subject and the body and so forth. But I just wanted to demonstrate that there. Whoops. Okay, so that is 2,200 hours just come up. So that's our hour. And we'll be continuing on this in the next code school on Thursday. There is, as you can see, a tremendous amount of stuff to look at. I'll just do a quick recap before we go. We've created an awful lot of stuff. And the first thing we did was we created the Doctype. We defined the Doctype, which was HTML. HTML, of course, Hypertext Markup language. It defines the structure of the page, not the presentation of the page, the structure of the page. As you, I hopefully notice that all of the elements that we've created are not redundant. All of these elements define how the body, the structure of the page actually renders. So, for example, and it gives it meaning, right? So, for instance, everything in the OL is ordered. Everything in the UL is unordered. So here we're giving it context, we're giving it meaning, we're giving it some definition, not presentation. We're not dealing with the style. We're not dealing with how, nor are we deciding how it behaves. So we're not creating on-click events or mouse over events. All of the behavioral stuff is for JavaScript. All of the style is in CSS, cascading style sheets, and how it is marked up in a semantic manner is in HTML. So we created, we first created the head, and then we have the title in here. So this is the page title, and then inside the body, everything in the body is what's displayed to the page, displayed to the document here. We have our headings, and we had different headings. So H1, there's a H2, and I think we had a H3 before. We also have a paragraph. So again, this is saying that this content is different in terms of semantics to a heading. It has a different meaning, right? So this is a paragraph. And then in the paragraph, we had our own little tag, which was a tag. This is the anchor tag. As Sniperside rightly reminded me. So this was the link to howtocodewell.net, giving it a target of blank. This creates a new tab. And then we gave it a title as well. Okay, so then after that we created some table of contents, and these table of contents is in an unordered list, and a link, an anchor link back to an ID based on, say, shopping list and leaderboard. We also created a mail to link as well, and I showed you how to do that. And then here we had the actual lists, so the shopping list and the leaderboard. And again, the OL has this is an ordered list, whereas this is a unordered list, a UL. And we also had nested lists in there too. If we went to the web page here, we can see the output of all of that. So if I just refresh to make sure that no other changes are there, so you can see the title at the top here. And we can see that that's the header 1. It's different to the header 2. It has a different meaning. You know, header 1, this is the first header of the document, and therefore it's important. More important than the H2, less and more important than H3, and so on and so forth. This is a paragraph, so it has a different meaning in a semantic sense to the heading. This is a link. And by default, the browser has displayed this with a underline. So that's how, you know, that this is what the default links are displayed. This is our unordered list here of the table of contents. And if I clicked on one of these, say for example the shopping list, that would take us to the anchor point of the shopping list. On the attribute of the shopping list ID, which is the unique identifier, this is the unordered list here. So we have an unordered list, and then we have a sub list as well of fruit, different types of fruit. And then below, what we did is we created another H2, I think this was, and then we had our ordered list, and then also we had a sub ordered list in there as well. So again, because it's an ordered list, we're giving this meaning. We're saying that Tim is in front of Jane, whatever leaderboard this is. It's not like an unordered list of shopping, right? So it doesn't matter what order you put the shopping in the shopping basket when you're walking around the store, but it does matter that Tim is in front of Jane, and Jane is in front of Frank. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you ever so much, everybody, for following and joining. Thank you very much, Front End Nexus, for following, and Windy Mindy, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Happy coding, everybody, and the podcast is coming out tomorrow at howtocodewell.fm. If you've got any questions, of course, then please do join the Discord server. That's howtocodewell.net/Discord. But thank you ever so much. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you next time. Have a good week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Take care. Cheers. Bye.